when I finally took control after 50. When diets don't heal, they just create confusion. Many people get caught up in the world of various diets, especially when they no longer feel comfortable in their own skin and their health starts to deteriorate. That's exactly what happened to me in my early 50s. Within 2 years, I was diagnosed with 3 different autoimmune diseases. Each one came with a different diet recommendation, and each expert was convinced that only their method would help. One said only the ketogenic diet works. Another insisted vegan was the solution, and the third said I had to eliminate everything containing gluten, sugar, or dairy. But these completely contradicted each other. I'm not the type to give up easily. I thought, if at least one condition improves, it'll be worth it. I followed the first recommendation for a full year, seriously disciplined, with supplements, strict schedules, endless research. Every month, hundreds of dollars went to nutritional supplements, but if that's what healing required, so be it. The result? Nothing. In fact, the follow up tests showed deterioration. This was devastating not just physically, but mentally. Stress grew within me, along with desperation and the feeling that I was getting something terribly wrong. But I didn't give up. I started over with a second diet. More months, more rules, more restrictions, even more expensive supplements. And again, no improvement. Just more fatigue, more complicated cooking, more self blame. The chaos only grew as time passed. Work and illnesses completely consumed all my attention. There was no time for anything else, just survival, day by day, diet by diet, test by test. My work didn't get easier either. In fact, I found it increasingly difficult to manage, while the question kept clicking in my mind: what am I doing wrong? Why isn't anything improving? I was diagnosed with thyroid dysfunction. I immediately received hormone replacement medication, which I started taking, following every instruction. 3 months later, however, they told me my condition had worsened. The dose needed to be increased. And indeed, I felt the deterioration. I became more tired, depressed, dizzy, and my body seemed to be slowing down. And as if that wasn't enough, I received a fourth diet. New rules, new forbidden lists. But it didn't end there. Naturopaths also got involved, everyone with good intentions, of course. But everyone said something different. Don't eat this. Eat lots of that. According to another, I should avoid exactly what the previous one recommended. I started taking notes on what doesn't go with what, but there was hardly any food left that everyone would have accepted. That's when the realization came: this is no longer about healing. This is about who I'm paying. Which trend, which method, which expert gets the next half of my monthly salary? While I was getting weaker and more desperate, and increasingly losing connection with myself, stress was no longer just a consequence, but the center point. The next medical visit arrived. I could almost predict what they would say. And I wasn't wrong. According to the lab results, my condition had worsened again, and naturally, the medication dose had to be increased again. But something in me had completely changed by then. I was smiling. Not cynically, not angrily, but from within. I calmly said, okay, just increase it. But inside, I already knew that this ends here and now. When I finally took back control, I went home, and my real healing began. Not with another diet, not with another pill. I took all the hormone replacement medications and threw them in the trash. To my family, I simply said, no more trendy diets. No more restrictions, prohibitions, contradictions. From now on, we eat like we used to, varied, but paying attention to the quality of ingredients, the freshness of food, simplicity. I also made changes in my work. No, I didn't quit, but I cleaned house. Those clients who were constant sources of stress, I quietly, peacefully let go. I no longer had to justify myself, no longer had to please those who were dragging me down. I turned off the TV. No more news, commercials, or fear-filled programs. Instead, I started learning about health, about my body, about the soul, about what real healing looks like. I wasn't chasing quick fixes, I wanted understanding, connection, and awareness. It didn't get easier overnight, but every day I felt a little more connected to myself. What used to feel like total chaos slowly started to make sense, first in my mind, then in my body. I began taking 10 minutes every morning to just sit in silence. Not meditating, just tuning in and listening to my body. What do I feel? What hurts? What feels good? I was surprised. My body was talking to me. I just hadn't been listening before. I started walking. Not exercising, walking. Every day. First 10 minutes, then 20. Not because someone told me to, but because it felt good. Being in nature, breathing fresh air, feeling the rhythm of my steps. I realized that thinking overrides everything. My body is truly a wonderful healing machine if my soul gives it the opportunity. Every single day brought me closer to myself. And that's when my body finally began to truly heal. I learned not to let others determine where I go, not to depend on anyone's approval. At 54, I finally learned to say no to the people who only complained and poisoned me with their negativity, to family members who constantly expected me to focus on everyone else but myself. From now on, I am the priority, I told myself. And it wasn't guilt I felt, but relief. I also changed my eating habits. I didn't diet, I simply moved back into my kitchen. I cooked. From fresh ingredients, with love, with attention. Every bite was conscious. I didn't count calories, didn't measure to the gram. I just listened to what my body wanted and gave it that. After 6 months, I could already feel the difference. A year later, my lab values normalized. I wasn't dizzy. My joints didn't hurt. I was energetic, cheerful, and looked years younger. People started asking, "What are you doing? You look so youthful." What was the secret? Asked someone around my age who was going through the same thing. I thought about it. I realized that healing doesn't depend on external things. Not on what I eat, what I take, who I listen to, but on reconnecting with myself. On stopping living according to others and starting to walk my own path. On learning to trust my body, my soul, my own feelings. My message to everyone over 50: don't let others decide where you're going. Don't let yourself depend on others' approval. Your body is a wonderful healing machine. Your soul is the controller. It's not too late to start after 50. In fact, this is the real beginning. When you're finally experienced enough to know, no one knows better what's good for you than yourself. When you realize that your body isn't an enemy, but your best ally, who has been with you all along and is just waiting for you to pay attention to it. The world is full of experts who want to tell you what to eat, what to take, what to believe. But you're already wise enough to know. The answer is within you. You just need to quiet down and listen. Thinking overrides everything. After 50, my life didn't end, it began.